Yes.
Okay, this is a really important conversation with one of our lender partners, Jeremy Plouzek with Superior Lending. Jeremy, how's it going?
It's going great. Thanks, Leslie. How are you?
Doing well, trying to keep up with everything that's going on in this crazy, crazy market. Hey, you've got a great perspective on something we talked about. You talked with Kenna about a few years ago, and I think it's important to revisit. And to be honest with you, I'm not sure if I should look at the camera or at you. So I might be bouncing back and forth.
Yeah, I'm doing the same.
Yeah. So we have, people that want to buy a house, aside from price increases that we're seeing taking place week after week. What's the cost of waiting on a house from an interest rate standpoint? If I wait 6 months for the market to crash, which we'll talk about that briefly in just a minute, what could that cost me just in 6 months' time with the buying power of my dollar? What happens? What does that look like?
Yeah, so rates are hard to time for sure. We have had historic low interest rates, and it seems like everyone's been saying that for the last decade. But COVID really gave us an opportunity as consumers to get a really inexpensive house payment, comparatively speaking. If rates go up just a quarter point, that'll change your payments on a $400,000 house almost $200. $150, let's say, which is significant. You know, that's over $2,000 every single year in and year out for 30 years.
Right. So there's a cost of, if you're in a position to buy a home, which we know that there's a lot of challenges with that in this market, the cost of waiting, that comes at a cost.
Yeah. So the interest rate fluctuations one, and then the other thing would be just price increases. Prices just go up. They do with inflation, and especially now, the Fed's pushing inflation. They've been trying to do this for a long time, but it's really gaining traction, and everyone's anticipating an 8% inflation rate this year, which would be something we haven't seen for a long time. And housing's not immune to that. In fact, housing's driving a lot of that.
Right.
So if you're paying more for a house in the future than you would be right now, you're just losing out on net worth. And unfortunately, we don't know, right, until hindsight, when you're kicking yourself for not having jumped on something sooner than later. You just don't know the future.
That's right. That's right. Now, when you say 8% inflation, you're talking just economy-wide.
Economy-wide, right. And housing's been 4%.
So it's housing. We're seeing it in gas prices. Yeah. It's the stuff you're buying at the store. It's your boats, your side-by-sides. It's your daily living needs. Everything is going up. Everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The interesting thing, just real quick, I guess I'll say, is housing has outpaced everything else, just general inflation, 2 to 1 over the last 50 years. Housing's up 4.5%, 5% overall along the West Side front over the last 50 years, and everything else is about 2 to 3%. So housing generally goes up almost double what everything else goes up.
Wow. Okay. And when we think about just from a general economy standpoint in an inflationary period, and I'm not giving investment advice at all. I'm not. Talk to your real estate or your investment professional, but a good hedge against inflation is appreciable assets.
Absolutely.
And that's where I think real estate is always a good investment. So that's good perspective on that. And to those who are waiting for the market to crash, there's no doubt our market is cyclical, but cycles, keep in mind, cycles can last 10 years. Cycles can last 15 years. And in Utah, Jeremy, we're blue skies ahead. A lot of those economic indicators point to a very strong growth, strong economy, strong employment, all of those good things. So if you're waiting for things to change, please do yourself a favor and take some steps now to get into the market. So Jeremy, changing gears a little bit, as I talk with particularly first-time home buyers, or even home buyers who have not applied for a loan in ages, they're always eager to meet with a lender. That's great, but I want to prepare them even better for that conversation. So what is your recommendation from a lender standpoint? First of all, what questions should prospective buyers be asking when they call? Or another way to look at it is when I get off the phone call with talking to a lender the first time, what information should I have in my in hand? What information
Yeah.
should I have?
So first and foremost, I would say make sure you like the person, right? Make sure you like him or her. They're gonna be digging through everything you've got for the next 30 days. Your history, your all but your blood type, really. It's your background, your financial background and current status. So make sure you like that person, you trust them, they pick up the phone when you call, or they call you right back, or they respond to your emails. So make sure that's first and foremost someone with whom you feel like you can have a relationship of trust. Second of all, probably a good idea to just, again, make sure that you feel like they know what they're talking about. They're asking you for the right documents. Be prepared to pony up your most recent 2 years of financial statements. So tax returns, W-2s, need a current bank statement, have to see where the down payment money's from. You're not laundering money for the mob or whatever. It's Patriot Act. We have to show that you're have legal right to work in the United States. So some sort of photo ID and then some pay stubs, or if you own your own business, right, the tax history for the last couple of years. So as far as coming away after that first meeting, from my perspective, I think the first thing is just that relationship.
Very good. That's very important. When I talk to a client after they visited with the lender for that first time, some of the questions from my perspective as a real estate agent include, okay, so let's talk about what are your closing costs? And sometimes buyers say, well, I don't know. Or maybe in that conversation it was discussed, but they didn't know to make note of that.
Right.
So what are the closing costs? Closing costs are the costs associated with getting your loan. It's a cost on top of your purchase of the home.
Absolutely.
What type of loan? Now, I suspect when you first meet with new buyers, you go through several different loan type options. You know, it's an FHA, it's conventional, it's 3% down, it's 5% down, a lot of different things that to a new buyer, it can be really overwhelming.
Yeah,
And
for
so
sure.
that's something just to be familiar with some of those terms after you meet with a lender. Jeremy, you can add to this if you want. When you talk with your agent, when I talk with my clients, it's helpful to know, are we talking about what type of down payment are you talking? Are you're bringing 5%, 20%, 3%?
Yeah.
That makes a difference when writing the offer.
So I'll say when I talk to people, hey, how much are you planning for down payment? Almost invariably, the answer is as little as possible. Okay, well, how much are you comfortable paying? And it's always as little as possible. That's not very helpful, right? Obviously, we want to keep our thing as little as possible. But if that was the case, we'd move in with mom and dad, right? And we just live in the basement forever. That would be amazing. So I would say, consumers, just be prepared. Be thinking of, okay, how much can I really come up with, right? Your lender's not trying to steal your information. They're not trying to get extra money. They just want to help you when you provide the parameters. What do we have to work with, and then what's the best solution for you? And here's some options, right? We can do 0 down, 3% down, 5% down, 20% down. We can do all those different things, but to have an open mind, I guess, and really have an understanding already of what you want to do, what you want your housing payment to look like, I guess.
Oh, that's another thing, right? In addition to the down payment, it's having an idea of what that payment level of comfort is. And
For sure.
You tell me what you think about this. When I talk with buyers, particularly young buyers, they know what they've been paying for rent, and that's often the first gauge for a house payment. And we have conversations about, don't get into a home where you're house poor, but be a little bit uncomfortable with that mortgage payment. Stretch just a little bit, because over time, your salary will likely increase, your job situation improves, all of those things. So it might be just a touch of a little pinch just for a short time, but stretch just a little bit, and don't exhaust your whole monthly income, right?
For
you want to
sure.
keep it to a reasonable percentage.
Yeah, I tell people all the time, there's a big difference, or there can be a big difference between what you can qualify for and what you're comfortable with. I can get you qualified up to almost half of your monthly income toward monthly debt. And some people, that's what works because they have other income streams that we can't use for qualifying, and that's fine. but I would be very uncomfortable if half of my income was going to my house payment.
Yeah, I would too.
Absolutely.
I would too.
So it's important to know not only what you can qualify for, but what am I comfortable spending? And like you said, it's okay to pay a little bit more, right? Because yeah, you're going to be getting raises, things are going to happen. So don't. I would definitely not want to be the reason someone is kept up at night because they can't make their mortgage payment. That makes me very uncomfortable.
That's right.
But yeah, think a little bit maybe outside the box and find ways to make it work.
That's great. Well, there's no doubt about it. I use this refer to our market, and I don't know, maybe I shouldn't, but it's like it's hand-to-hand combat. I mean, it is a contact sport right now, and I say that not to discourage people from being in the market, but to have courage that there's a way through this market. So, Jeremy, from your lending perspective, do you have any wise words for people that are vying for that home? It's tough. It is.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard if you don't just have a bucket full of cash. But again, if you think about the long-term perspective, you might be paying more than the asking price. But if the home value is coming up at 5% a year, you're going to make that up in just a couple of months. Absolutely. So as much as that might sting right now, if as home prices continue to appreciate, you're going to have equity, and then more equity than you possibly thought in months or years. So
yeah, if it stings a little bit, just wait 5 minutes, and you'll be glad that you bought, you did, and not at some point in the future. So absolutely. Yeah. Well, hey, that's really helpful. I really appreciate your time. I think this is helpful information. The takeaway for me really is an 8% appreciation, or excuse me, 8% inflation. Yeah. Economic inflation forecast that does impact our real estate market in an inflationary way, but it also impacts everything else that we're doing, that we're buying. And so that's one takeaway. And also being prepared when you go to the lender with understanding what your down payment parameters are, what your limits are, and what your monthly payment tolerance is. So those are some takeaways, Jeremy. I really appreciate your time.
Oh, thanks to talk to you. Good to talk to you. Thanks for the opportunity.
All right. Now get back to work.
All right. See you, Leslie.
Bye-bye.